If you thought in a language that you don't speak, how powerful would that thought be? You know? You wouldn't know if the thought said, I like Marmite or I hate Marmite. If it was all in a different language and you didn't understand it. And how could you pin that to one's self and say, yeah, that's part of me, that's a true thing about me? Because you haven't a clue. It was just like, you when play Marmite. Don't know, it's got nothing to do with me. It's got nothing to do with me. It's just something that came up and something that just passed through, gone. Nothing to do with me. I need to do my last few bits to get set up here. I have a new video which I finished making last night, which I want to share on the stream with you guys, and I want to expand on it in the stream because the video is about two characteristics of everything that we experience through our senses, but there's a third, and explaining the third was something I wasn't sure how I was going to do it, and I realised actually it's going to be a lot of talking about it really rather than showing it, and by doing the stream and reacting to the video and talking about it after the video is a great opportunity to expand on that third characteristic. So that's what we're going to do today. The video is purposefully very short and very simple so as not to take away from the simplicity of just noticing these very obvious characteristics of everything that comes up in our senses. But here in this format where we talk about challenges of mental health and learning about how things really are and exploring philosophies and different well-being paths, this is the right kind of environment to take that step and talk about the more challenging things, and I'm going to compile that into a video as well. So we're coming on to 11. Why don't we jump on in to this video about how the senses work, is also the title of this stream, and it's very hard to talk about it. So I thought, why not try and make a video? And let's jump in, and I'm going to be quiet and let this run. Let's give it a watch. Hello and welcome. In this video, I'm going to attempt to demonstrate some fundamentals about how our senses work by utilising the influence over your senses of sight and sound that this video format enables. This insight can be extremely powerful and change how we look at life. While this insight can be found in science and philosophies, I'll be presenting it in relation to two of the three characteristics of all phenomena from the Buddhist teachings, simply because that's how I gain the insight myself. For best results, watch this video in a darkened room while wearing headphones and avoid all distractions. If you're unable to darken your environment, you can just close your eyes at the appropriate moments. The contents of this video are purposefully simple and the mood calming in order to bring our attention firmly to the present moment with a clear comprehension of exactly what our senses of sight and hearing are experiencing right now. Just relax and allow yourself to calm down, and your attention will naturally begin to rest on the simple sight of the candle flame and the gentle music and sounds. The three characteristics describe all phenomena, which is anything that arises in our senses. Utilizing video, we will now investigate two of these characteristics within our senses of sight and sound. We will begin with the sense of sight. Stare at the image on the screen, allowing yourself to be interested in all of the little details, like how the flame moves and how it illuminates the glass around it. Know clearly that right now the image of the candle flame has come into your sense of sight. Now the image begins to fade. With the image of the candle now gone, your sense of sight is now empty. Notice if you experience any discomfort or uneasiness in the absence of sights. Now, the image of the candle flame begins to arise again. Know clearly that right now you are witnessing the image of a candle flame in your sense of sight. Now the image of the candle flame begins to fall away. Know clearly that right now your sense of sight is empty of all images. Now the image of the candle flame arises once again. Now we shall move to the sense of sound. Know clearly that right now you are hearing the music and calming birdsong. Now the music begins to fade and fall away. Know clearly that when I stop talking, your sense of hearing is empty of sound. Notice if there is any discomfort or uneasiness in the silence. Now the music begins to rise again. Know clearly that the music is present in your sense of hearing. Now the music begins to fall away once again. Know clearly that when I stop talking, there is only silence. It is in the nature of our senses for phenomena to arise and fall. For sight, sound, smells, tastes and experiences of touch to rise and fall. To come and go. To rise and fall. However, when all is gone, with nothing arisen in the senses and nothing to be conscious of, we do not cease to be conscious. We do not cease to be. We are still here, only we are here in silence. We can clearly witness that the image of the candle flame and music are both impermanent. Impermanence being the first characteristic of all phenomena experienced through the senses. All phenomena comes and goes. Would it make any sense to desire the image of the candle flame to remain present in our sense of sight permanently? Would it make any sense to desire silence when it is in the nature of our sense of hearing for sounds to arise? The second characteristic is discomfort or uneasiness, born of the fact that if we find the image of the candle flame pleasant, we dislike it when it fades away, and if we dislike the image of the candle flame, we dislike it when it arises once again. With phenomena destined to rise and fall in our senses, If we choose to relate to it in terms of pleasant and unpleasant, what we want to keep and what we want to get rid of, we are destined to suffer at some point as the phenomena naturally arises and passes. What does it feel like with no sights to be conscious of and no sounds to be conscious of? What is left, here and now, in the silence? The more we learn to still our body and mind, the more silence we can bring, and the more clearly we can examine what, if anything, remains. So there we go. That is the video I just finished yesterday. It is on the channel. You have the link. I do recommend, if you can watch that without me on stream, without the chat. Whoops. It's going to be more powerful if you can, if the room can be dark and clear and completely free of anything else. It's going to be more effective. So they were two of the three characteristics from Buddhism of all that we experience through our senses. And I deliberately didn't include the third, which is non-self, because, or not self, because it's hard to explain. So that's what we're going to dive into today, because we've got time and space, and we can have a chat about it. And in order to do this, we need to expand a little bit on the senses. One of the reasons to bother doing this is because obviously the teachings of Buddhism, path starts with because we suffer and we're looking for an end of suffering. And the diagnosis is that the cause of that suffering is ignorance, that we've mistaken things as being one way when they're actually another way. And that mistake, that misunderstanding leads to suffering. And if we can address that misunderstanding and correct that misunderstanding, then we can not suffer. And the word I often use on here is obviously well-being. We can have a sense of everything's okay, contentment. So part of that ignorance and misunderstanding is around our identity, our own identity, how we identify, what we identify ourselves to be. And in order to address this, the process that Buddhism recommends, at least in the early teachings, is to break up our experience into certain categories and explore and investigate those categories, and to ask if anything can be found in those categories that fulfills the belief in myself. Is there anything that we can find and say, yes, that is me? So I would ask the question, could you say in that video that the candle is you? And you probably wouldn't have thought the candle was you anyway. But the primary evidence that that candle isn't you, it's not me, it's not us, is that there was a time when the candle was there, and then time when the candle wasn't there. And when the candle wasn't there, we were still there. So we've taken something in our experience and we're able to rule that out. I've experienced life being me when the candle wasn't there. So the candle's is not me. The same with the music. When the music was playing and then it ceased, I didn't cease. I was still there. I experienced life in the absence of both the candle and the music. So those things appear in the sense of sight and hearing. And ordinarily we consider ourselves to have 5 senses: the sense of sight, hearing, smell, taste, and touch. Now, we can expand on that video to saying, you eat a strawberry ice cream. Are you that strawberry ice cream? Well, there are times when you're experiencing the taste of a strawberry ice cream, and there are times when you're not experiencing the taste of a strawberry ice cream, and you're still you, while there is an absence of experiencing strawberry ice cream. So you see that this always happens. This investigation is happening right here and right now. And if we want to investigate whether I am the experience, the taste of strawberry ice cream, if I want to dial into the sense of taste, I need to not be putting all of my attention on the telly. I need to not be putting all of my attention on thinking about tomorrow. So there is something to be said for the process of stillness and dialing into the ability to put our attention on the here and now, the present moment. When we can do that, and I'll ask the question, what else is there other than the 5 senses? Well, we have our feelings, and we have our thoughts and our will. And I'm not gonna go much deeper than that for the process of this, because it's that we have there more than enough to work on. So already we can investigate our 5 senses, and we can see, because of impermanence, because of change, that sometimes we're experiencing things and sometimes we're not. And when we're not experiencing those things, we know ourselves to not be those things. We also, just from that video, have come to see that desiring the sight of the candle flame, you can't say, I own the sight of that candle flame, because sometimes it's there and sometimes it's not. And even if you were to say, right, it was me that made the video of that candle flame, and it was me that controlled when it came and when it went, but you could go onto it, full screen it, screen grab it, put it up, boom. Now I don't have the power to take it away from you, it's right there. But in order for it to remain there in your sense of sight, you need to dedicate your life to sitting there staring at a picture of a candle, which is pretty clearly not something that anybody is thinking that they want to do. So at some point you have to get up and go to the loo, go and eat. At some point you get bored of the picture of the candle. Now what about like things that people normally desire? Like a car. We can't constantly be looking at the car. We can't constantly be driving the car. When we go to sleep, the car's not there anymore. You drive the car enough, say you need to use the car for work and you drive it around for work, you're going to get bored of driving the car and want to go home and watch Twitch, play games. It brings into, already that's a huge step. It's already a massive, massive step. And to be honest, maybe an uncomfortable step for many to look at this, things that we desire and think, it can't, to pin it to the sense of mine, me, is challenging when we know that as soon as our senses are off of it, that it's not there. There's a discomfort. If we buy a new game, we want to play the new game, but then at 9 o'clock we're expected to turn up for work, then our senses are no longer experiencing the game, we're experiencing work. We don't want to be experiencing work, we want to be experiencing the game. We suffer. That is the discomfort. The pleasurable experience that arises in the senses has passed, has left the senses, and an experience of being in work that we don't want to, maybe we do enjoy work normally, but just on this particular day, this brand new game's just come out, we want to be playing it, and the experience of work has come into the senses, the sights, the sounds, and we don't want it, and you can't get rid of it. It's there. So both desire and the desire not to experience, otherwise known as aversion, both cause suffering when these things arise and pass on their own. We have little control over them. Particularly with that example of screenshotting the candle. Now I've got the candle, it's there, I do have it, it is permanent, you can't make it go away. And then boredom comes along. So even when we get what we want and we try and make it permanent, it ceases to provide the pleasure that it once did. So that's pretty heavy. That's pretty heavy and pretty challenging. Pretty challenging. And I think it's probably pretty obvious why I didn't include this stuff in that video, because I just wanted to include very obvious, simple examples of how our senses work, that things come into them and things go. That's not spiritual per se, that's not denied by science. It is very easily recognizable for all of us in our lives to see that that's just the way the senses work. It's just reality. But it's not something that people talk about a lot. It's not something that draws a large crowd. It's a quiet stream. But that is what we're looking at right now. It's what we're talking about. It's what I'm talking about. So in order to move on to the self, that's where we need to start, really, is seeing that at least the process of starting to identify what's not the self. So this is where a large part of the practice comes in, is accepting what comes up, allowing it to come up, trying not to fall into that desire and aversion reaction, like dislike, but just to give it, whatever comes up, the permission to come up, and then see if it's permanent. Because whenever we're here, when we were born till now, feels like something's permanent. But where is that? Where is the me? I feel like there's a me here. Feels like there's always been a me here. Where is it? Where's the evidence for the me? So we broaden our search to the best way I can think to explain this. So in the acceptance commitment therapy was accepting everything that comes up, and then identifying with that perceives what comes up, not necessarily the content of what has come up. And this has included thoughts. Now, the way I've learned to look at it through Buddhism is more powerful than just saying that. So it's the same thing, but it is broader. So the way that it's put is that, like, an ear is a sense organ that hears sound. So if a dog barks, the sound wave comes along and it hits the ear, and in my experience, I experience the sound in the sense of hearing of the dog bark. And it's not there, then it comes up and I hear it, and then it goes when the sound ends. And this is also applied then to the mind and mind objects. So a thought would be considered a mind object in the same way a dog bark, the sound waves, is an object, and it is sensed. The mind object, the thought, is sensed by the mind in the same way sound is sensed by the ear, and then in experience the thought arises in the sense of mind and passes in the sense of mind in exactly the same way that the dog bark arises in the sense of hearing and then passes in the sense of hearing. The powerful thing about considering the mind to be a sense organ is you only need to remember one thing, and any mind-made anything can be seen to be sensed by the mind organ. And then you can ask yourself, is it permanent? Does it stay forever? Or am I sensing change? Because impermanence is really change. If we watch the clouds, we see them constantly changing. Even a house, if anyone has been responsible for maintaining a house, even just living in a house, it can be a clean house. You sense with your eyesight, with your nose, with your sense of touch, that it's clean. And then as the days go past, you start to see dust, you start to touch grease and grime, particularly if you haven't done the washing up, and you can smell dust. There's this constant change, and what is in the senses is changing all the time. And if you apply that to the mind, I mean, our thoughts are always changing. We're always thinking about different things, constantly, all the time. And if you think about the standard way that we think about this, obviously, is that we're a solid being, a me, passing through time. And this practice of looking is enough. I don't need to say any more than that. The practice of, if someone's to engage in the practice and start looking about, okay, what's there right now? Is it me? Is it solid and permanent? That's enough. And just doing that is anyone, yourselves, will gain some insight into this. So I'm all of what I'm saying isn't me saying how things are. It's an invitation for others to investigate yourselves, and that's the idea of the video, is to try and create an experience, because it's about us witnessing it in our experience, not about believing what someone says, not about believing what I say or anyone says, but following the pointers, asking the questions and investigating. When we start watching these things come and go in the present moment, it becomes clear that what's real is the present moment. And what appeared to be time is actually just the measurement of different changes. How long has it been since that thing changed? And the most obvious one of those is a sundial. A sundial literally telling the time. And the thing that changes is the position of the sun in the sky. And that changes because the earth is spinning. So when we say it's been an hour, what we mean is the earth's moved this much. The earth has changed from this position to this position this much. And when we say it's December, for example, we mean that the earth is in a certain position around the sun. And that position is in a cycle. And because of the tilt of the earth, we experience the change as the change in seasons of summer and winter. But when we say this point in time now being July. In fact, it's the summer equinox today, is it not? The 22nd? We are right on the point where the northern hemisphere is tilted the most towards the sun. Whatever point that is, I mean, when you get out in space like that, it's very hard to know, is it? You know, you haven't anything to compare it against. You're just in an infinite emptiness. I suppose you could figure it out if you started mapping all the other stars and stuff, but we ain't going to be doing that today. What you're saying is that change is in a certain position. The earth is in a certain position around the sun. This has been known for thousands of years. Obviously, I don't know the correct name of the point in time of change of human society change, when people were making Stonehenge, and is it megalithic? They knew this. They were mapping change. So we ask the question, if it's changing, if it's not permanent, how can it be me? Because I seem to be permanent. I've been born and I've been here the whole time, and I see these things changing. I see my body changing. Seemed to be a kid, and then I became a teenager, and then an adult, and now my hair's changing. It was dark, and now there's grey ones appearing. There's change happening, but I'm still here. I'm seeing this change. What is that? And the term non-self as a characteristic of things that come up can be considered. Is it a self? Is it myself and yourself? Another way of looking at it is, does it have its own permanent essence as an individual separate thing? One way of looking at that is to ask, is it a soul? Has it got a soul? And in this internal exploration, we're asking if it's a thought of like, I like strawberry ice cream. Does that thought, I like strawberry ice cream, have its own permanent soul and its own essence? Or is it just a thought that came up in the sense of mind? It spoke, before we learn to speak, they're just a series of sounds. And every single one of us started off not knowing how to speak and just hearing random sounds. And when we go to another country where they speak a language that we don't understand, it's the same thing, it's just random sounds. If you thought in a language that you don't speak, how powerful would that thought be? You wouldn't know if the thought said, I like Marmite or I hate Marmite. If it was all in a different language and you didn't understand it. And how could you pin that to one's self and say, yeah, that's part of me, that's a true thing about me? Because you haven't a clue. It was just like, you when play Marmite. Don't know, it's got nothing to do with me. It's got nothing to do with me. It's just something that came up and something that just passed through, gone. Nothing to do with me. I can't verify, I can't yes or no that statement. But what verifies statements? Where's the solid, permanent thing that verifies statements? Is there a self, a permanent solid essence? And the characteristic of non-self or not self, sometimes translated as no self, not my personal favourite, is saying that everything that comes up in the senses is not myself. It doesn't have a solid permanent essence. The same way the candle came up, it spent time in our sense of sight, and then it left. When it was gone, it was gone. It was no longer in our sense of sight. Can it be said to have a solid, permanent essence of its own, live in its own individual, totally separate existence from ours? How can it be separate? Because when we're having our experience of the candle on the screen, we're having an experience of the candle. The candle is within our experience, and then it's out and left our experience. Can you say the candle has a soul? Lots of people, obviously. I'm using an extreme example because nobody in here is saying the candle's got a soul. But I'm starting where we agree, where it's obvious. And that seed is going in. Yeah, I have a seed in myself as well, and I'm watering the seed, and it grows. it grows. And this is the practice for anyone who's interested in Buddhism. This is what it is. It's not it can be completely secular. It doesn't have to be a religious thing. It can be just about turning to our senses and ourself and exploring what is it that's here. Not just here, but in here. And then, so we talked about thoughts, which was actually the third aggregate. But feelings is the second. So normally, if one is following the 4 steps of mindfulness, one would go body, which includes the senses, to feeling, and then to the mind. So I jumped ahead a bit there with the mind, because I was explaining using the mind, considering that to be a sense object. So these things are things to be tested. They're not statements of truth. It's a matter of, okay, I'm going to entertain the idea that maybe my mind is a sense organ, and that anything that comes up in it is a sense object, and then see if there's anything there that's permanent. The second one that one would typically move to, though, is feelings. And they can be feelings, obviously. Feelings in this context really kind of refers to agreeable, pleasant experiences, or disagreeable and unpleasant experiences. It's that reaction of I like it, I don't like it. And I haven't sat down and really gone through all emotions to see if I can find anything that doesn't fit into that very simple 2 category. Do chuck in chat. We've got a few people in here. Welcome. You're very welcome. If you want to chuck anything in chat, do. If you can think of any emotion that doesn't fit into I like or I don't like, I'd be interested to hear. Aversion or desire. In this realm of feeling, a third is also presented, which is neutral. It's just what is, neither liking it or disliking it. The interesting thing about the neutral, in the sense of feeling, is that it is very comparable with I'm experiencing the sight of the candle from the video, or the candle has gone. So if the candle left, but a light bulb replaced the image of the candle, one wouldn't experience the neutral. You can like the candle and dislike the light bulb, or dislike the candle and like the light bulb. There's no neutral there. But we get a little hint of what that neutral could be, or neutrality, when the candle is off and there's nothing new on the screen. There's nothing in sight, or we close our eyes, there's nothing in sight. It's neutral. And it is possible to like and dislike it. But the practice is to find neutral, really. To be okay with neutral and investigate neutral. What is neutral? What is it? What is still here when all the sights and sounds have gone? So we look at feeling. We're talking now about the third characteristic of non-self, or no self, or not self. And you say, is there any feeling that's permanent? A solid, permanent, that's me. I'm that. Because people can identify as their thoughts, and they can identify as their feelings. And normally people, we have a feeling and we think it's our feeling. And you bring that question to observing feeling. Is that feeling me? Is it solid and permanent? And feelings can also be seen to come and go. When I was watching that video a minute ago, to be honest, I was feeling kind of tight and kind of resistant, or not. It was definitely on the dislike side of the spectrum, but not because of the video, but just the pain in my neck, and I was feeling super low energy, but and I was thinking, I wonder if this is going to flow. What am I going to talk about afterwards? And that's gone. I don't know what changed. Well, I know it changed. I know that feeling changed to something else. It wasn't something I did, but it's gone. It is literally gone, just like the candle is gone from the screen. So can I say that it's me? That's feeling is me? It's absent right now. Can't be me. Is it a solid and permanent essence of its own? Well, I don't know where it is right now. I don't know where it is. I can't point to it. Can't tell you where it went. I can't pin my name to it, because as far as I know, I'm here, but that's gone. So is that me? And it's not. The reason why I don't like no self is because it's almost bordering on denying that there's anything there. I use the word nihilistic to refer to that, but I'm not sure that I have my complete understanding of what that word really means. I'm a student of philosophy, but this seems like a denial of anything. But there's something, it comes and goes. It's like it's a part of, like a dog barking is a sound that you get from dogs, and a cat meowing is a sound that you get from cats. Sometimes you can hear planes go overhead, sometimes you can hear ocean waves break. If you have ears and hearing, functional hearing, these are the types of things that you'll hear just happening. And similar, it's the same with feelings. If you have feelings, then occasionally they're the kind of feelings that will come up. If you're alive, if there's a human body here, these are the kind of feelings that will come up. And I have said that I do believe that lots of animals have very similar feelings to us. I don't need to pin my individual personality, the person, onto that particular feeling. But I don't necessarily have to pin the name, the label human on it either. If one is a living being, I think we can see a lot of these feelings in living beings. So, can we take it much deeper? What about the will? What about our will? Is that solid and permanent? Is it labelable as who we are? Or does that come and go? Does that change? I mean, we have our sense organs, if we're lucky enough for them all to be working, sights and hearing, and taste and smell. And within those sense organs, the content is changing. So if we have a mind as a sense organ, as an organ of the body, perhaps there seems to be some kind of correlation between having a human body and a human type mind. Had a slight loss in tangent, and then a really nice absence of thought. Doesn't make good content, but it's nice. I don't want to pass up the opportunity to experience that. So yeah, if we have the thought pop back up in my mind there, I saw it and it instigated speech. We have times when the will is present. It says, I'm going to go and make a cup of tea, and there is action. And there is times, if you have your cup of tea and you like, I need a break, I want to sit down and rest, I'm going to make myself a cup of tea. Going to make the cup of tea is an action, it's a doing, it's a the will is made a decision and is making things happen, apparently. But when one has a cup of tea and is resting, taking the break that caused the desire, the will to kick in and make the cup of tea in the first place, once one is resting, the doing has stopped. The activity of the will into making something happen has stopped, taking a break. And there's an absence of that activity of the will, and obviously the content of the will changes all the time. Sometimes it wants tea, sometimes it wants to go to the bathroom, sometimes it wants to build something, clean something, get something, buy something, throw something away. The content changes. And this is how it goes. This investigation of this the investigation of this experience, turning the attention to what's happening, and this particular process focuses on identifying what one isn't. And I don't know what people consider the word spiritual to mean. I'll be interested to hear if anyone wants to try up any definitions. But to me it means that exploration of the sense of self, the question, who am I? And this particular practice gets closer to identifying who we are by identifying who we aren't. I've been listening to a lot of Advaita Vedanta stuff, non-duality stuff, and it doesn't seem to pay much attention to the process of going through who we aren't. It tries to point at who we are. But I think all these different perspectives, different paths, the most important thing, and mental health, the most important thing is seeing what the challenge is right now. Where am I stuck? And sometimes, quite a lot of the time, I don't know where I'm stuck. I don't identify where I'm stuck until that sticking point ceases, until the blockage falls apart. And then it's in hindsight, oh look, that's what it was all this time. Look at that. What I can do then is I'll make a note of it, and then because these things come back up, because it's in the nature of the senses, they come back up in thoughts, feelings, perhaps circumstances, perhaps they're triggered, there's a conditioning going on here, conditioned mind and body reacts certain ways. This is one of the things that one finds while looking for oneself. And there's no denial from me that there is a conditioned body here that reacts certain ways. For example, when someone calls my name, I turn, reply, hi, how you doing? It's conditioned to do that. It's conditioned to respond in that way to that particular series of sounds. But is that permanent? Anyone who's done cognitive behavioural therapy or any kind of behavioural related, not even just behavioural therapy, but things like counselling and things, is an attempt to see how things are right now, and maybe that condition is not working for us anymore. Maybe it did work well once and maybe it's not working well now. Expose that, talk about what caused it, recognise how it causes a problem now, and when there's recognition that it's causing problems, then we just stop doing it, because it's not. We don't want the negative consequences. So the conditioning can change. I think most people who would watch this would be open, maybe even hopeful of the fact that things can change, that kind of conditioning can change, that we can improve our well-being, that it's not permanent, we're not stuck, we're not imprisoned in our whatever type of suffering we experience now. There's the potential to learn and grow and move in a positive direction. If there wasn't that potential to change, we'd be stuck with whatever befalls us. So if that conditioning can change, can it be considered to be a solid, permanent me? I made this mistake years ago. I was practicing a lot. I was pulling apart all of these things that were holding me back. I was like, that's not me, that's not me, that's not me. And it was great until I started to reach part of me that I liked. I was like, yeah, no, that bit. That bit there. That bit. That is me, yeah, that bit. I like that bit. Let's keep that. I like that. And the funny thing is that actually, this has all just been coming up recently. The funny thing is that for me, that the reality of the circumstances that propped up the positive, what I consider to be a positive image at that time, actually fell apart within, if not weeks, then just a few months. But it carried on for years. So that is the characteristic of non-self, and in 4 minutes we're going to watch the video again. For those who have been present for the first viewing, we've talked about a lot, and see if on the second viewing we can expand the arising and passing and the coming and going, that understanding, cast that net a bit wider than just sights and sounds. Bring in this characteristic of non-self, of not self, of has it a solid and permanent essence? I was feeling really quite calm then, and then that feeling of the tension and tightness and things all came back again. It wasn't me, I didn't choose to do it. I don't want, my natural reaction to that feeling is aversion. Given the choice, I would choose not to experience it, but I don't have a choice, it's right there. In fact, it's fading already. Yeah, so I think for me right now, I don't personally view it as me saying this stuff. Or even me making the video that we're about to watch. I made it. There seemed, I don't know, whoever made it. I'm just going to use standard English, yeah. Although I'm tripping over it because I'm processing things differently. And then I watched it and was and I found it challenging. But how can I, in finding it challenging was evidence that I had a lot to learn from it. But how could I make it while I had a lot to learn from it? Doesn't make any sense. And what we've just talked about, I don't necessarily consider to have been me talking. I'm processing it. I'm learning so much just from this, from sitting here and exploring this stuff, dedicating this time to. I think it does make a difference to put it into words and speak it. So it is time once again to jump back into this video. Enjoy. Hello and welcome. In this video, I'm going to attempt to demonstrate some fundamentals about how our senses work by utilising the influence over your senses of sight and sound that this video format enables. This insight can be extremely powerful and change how we look at life. While this insight can be found in science and philosophies, I'll be presenting it in relation to two of the three characteristics of all phenomena from the Buddhist teachings, simply because that's how I gain the insight myself. For best results, watch this video in a darkened room while wearing headphones and avoid all distractions. If you're unable to darken your environment, you can just close your eyes at the appropriate moments. The contents of this video are purposefully simple and the mood calming in order to bring our attention firmly to the present moment with a clear comprehension of exactly what our senses of sight and hearing are experiencing right now. Just relax and allow yourself to calm down, and your attention will naturally begin to rest on the simple sight of the candle flame and the gentle music and sounds. The three characteristics describe all phenomena, which is anything that arises in our senses. Utilizing video, we will now investigate two of these characteristics within our senses of sight and sound. We will begin with the sense of sight. Stare at the image on the screen, allowing yourself to be interested in all of the little details, like how the flame moves and how it illuminates the glass around it. Know clearly that right now the image of the candle flame has come into your sense of sight. Now the image begins to fade. With the image of the candle now gone, your sense of sight is now empty. Notice if you experience any discomfort or uneasiness in the absence of sights. Now, the image of the candle flame begins to arise again. Know clearly that right now you are witnessing the image of a candle flame in your sense of sight. Now the image of the candle flame begins to fall away. Know clearly that right now your sense of sight is empty of all images Now the image of the candle flame arises once again. Now we shall move to the sense of sound. Know clearly that right now you are hearing the music and calming birdsong. Now the music begins to fade and fall away. Know clearly that when I stop talking, your sense of hearing is empty of sound. Notice if there is any discomfort or uneasiness in the silence. Now the music begins to rise again. Know clearly that the music is present in your sense of hearing. Now the music begins to fall away once again. Know clearly that when I stop talking, there is only silence. It is in the nature of our senses for phenomena to arise and fall. For sight, sound, smells, tastes and experiences of touch to rise and fall. To come and go. To rise and fall. However, when all is gone, with nothing arisen in the senses and nothing to be conscious of, we do not cease to be conscious. We do not cease to be. We are still here, only we are here in silence. We can clearly witness that the image of the candle flame and music are both impermanent, impermanence being the first characteristic of all phenomena experienced through the senses. All phenomena comes and goes. Would it make any sense to desire the image of the candle flame to remain present in our sense of sight permanently? Would it make any sense to desire silence when it is in the nature of our sense of hearing for sounds to arise? The second characteristic is discomfort or uneasiness, born of the fact that if we find the image of the candle flame pleasant, we dislike it when it fades away, and if we dislike the image of the candle flame, we dislike it when it arises once again. With phenomena destined to rise and fall in our senses, if we choose to relate to it in terms of pleasant and unpleasant, what we want to keep and what we want to get rid of, we are destined to suffer at some point as the phenomena naturally arises and passes. What does it feel like with no sights to be conscious of and no sounds to be conscious of? What is left here and now in the silence? The more we learn to still our body and mind, the more silence we can bring, and the more clearly we can examine what, if anything, remains. Liminal, appreciate that. I presume that's supposed to be slow fade in and out, very serene and calm. So Liminal preferred the fade in and outs to be slower. She has a more artistic eye than I do, and I chose to do it my own way. Because I agree with her that the fade in and out, the early fade ins and out, look beautiful, particularly on the candle. Obviously, the music was harder to get that to fade nicely, and I had to fiddle with it. But the candle just looks very, very beautiful as it fades gently in and out. And the reason why I made the later ones in that video faster is because our day-to-day experience, things come and go boom, 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 super, super fast. Not only that, but we've got so much happening all at once. We have not just our sights and sounds, obviously, are normally dominant for most of us, but smell and taste and touch as well. Then we have all of the feelings that we spoke about going on at the same time. We have all of our mental activity going on at the same time, perhaps like anxiety, thinking about one thing, trying to do another thing, work pressures, an incessant, constant flow in different sense organs. So it's not always calm and serene, is it? And that is the artistic point I was trying to make in the progression of that video, that the progress in that understanding is seeing it happen faster. But without a shadow of a doubt, it sure does make a far more beautiful and appealing thing to witness slower. Oh, excuse me. Similar perhaps to watching waves on a beach or clouds, that they're moving at that kind of speed where you can see it. You can actually see it. And I remember when I was younger and I would watch the clouds and just marvel in it and be like, there's something there that I think's really important, and the rest of the world that's going on doesn't seem to see it, doesn't seem to value it. And as I got older and get into more difficult, challenging modes of being, or mental health, or challenging times, crises, can't even see it in the clouds anymore. And then it feels like it's lost. So that demonstrates the work that's necessary, that when it's easy to see and it can't, and you if you're experiencing that you can't see it, maybe something resonates and it's like, yeah, I did used to watch the clouds when I was younger. I have had experiences where I did see it. Why can't I experience it now? That bump in the road is to do with our own activity. Too much going on in the five senses, too much going on in the mind, too much going on in feelings, that we're overwhelmed. We are taking in as much as we can. We're already witnessing as much as we can. And then that process that we spoke about of seeing what is self, because that process, when something is designated as self, is absolutely top priority, and it gets loads of attention and energy. And if you're putting loads of attention and energy in this stuff, you can't see it even in the easy places to see it. So it's a positive step. If anyone recognises that, yeah, I used to see it and now I can't see it, that's a positive step to recognise that. And recognise then that the key is, like we said before, recognising where you are, but also knowing, what to do about it. And really, I think most people inherently know what to do about things once they witness it. I think most of us, I've certainly experienced it, where I have been deliberately not wanting to do what I know I need to do and choosing not to see it. And that can become conditioned and habitual. And then when you do think, and I have thought, I want to do something about this now, I need to do something, it's a mystery. What is this? Because it was so long ago and it's become so habitual that we started doing whatever it is we do to avoid seeing it. But the seeking, I've been watching quite a few videos about the seeking, and the seeker may be an illusion, but it is a valuable illusion in that it's more valuable. If we have one illusion of who we think we are and then we make a new one of I'm a seeker, the information you get as a seeker can help drop the whole lot. Whereas the first illusion, maybe more likely not, but some people have spontaneous insight. So some pretty right to the issue kind of stuff in today's stream, really, right to the heart of it, dropping away. I mean, if I was to say, right, today we're going to talk about Buddhism, and someone wasn't religious, the images that they would have in their head would be about people in robes and monasteries and paintings and books and all of the paraphernalia, and hopefully it can be seen that it's not religious. It's not at all religious. It's just looking back at oneself. And I talk a lot about mental health because we all have challenges in our lives. And to be honest with you, I feel like the process of thinking, some conditioned part of myself isn't working anymore, or I'm suffering, or something's not working so great, and turning around to oneself and putting some attention and effort into understanding what's going on here and trying to find a better way. For me, and you don't need to believe me, but in my experience, the spiritual path that I felt that I went on to explore was just that I didn't stop doing the mental health stuff. I just didn't stop. I didn't stop looking at myself. I didn't stop questioning where the suffering was coming from, what the conditioning was up to. When I'd seen that conditioning could change, and I was like, well, what is? It just raised more questions. So I really do feel if someone is leading, I mean, this is a challenging thing to say, but if greeted in a good way, raising good questions without causing too much suffering for oneself or others, that mental health challenges can be a wake-up call, an opportunity to go on and learn things that make our experience better than they ever would have been if it wasn't for the mental health challenge. But it just feels like the same thing to me. Do disagree if you like. Everything that I've said and shared. Don't believe any of it. That's the it's the best disclaimer ever. Everything I've said today, I will say, don't believe any of it, but do believe the things that you can verify in your own experience. What do you find to be true and permanent, if we're in keeping with today's theme? Because even if, and this is my experience again, even if one theorizes, okay, I think it's this and that is solid and permanent, go with it. If that's it's better to go with what you genuinely think is true, because you have to try. You can't, else you're denying what you believe. And if you do try, and it turns out that it doesn't work, then you know. If you believe something is, like, you have to burn all that stuff out. And, I mean, this just goes to show what an epic waste of a life and time it is to do what other people are telling you that you should do. Trying to be who other people say that you should be. Go with your own experience. Try what you believe to be true. And if it proves itself wrong, just as a hypothesis, I think it's this. I think it's like this. I think I am like this. I mean, loads of us do that as teenagers, don't we? We try on all kinds of different personas. Yeah, this is definitely me. And then, particularly if it's like if we identify as like a band fan, I am a fan of whoever, Nirvana when I was a teenager. I'm a Nirvana fan. And I didn't cease to be a Nirvana fan, but it definitely got relegated from persona status. We go through the things that we like and dislike. They come and they go. Feelings of the pleasure come and go. Those thoughts, just like we've been saying the whole stream, come and go. Yeah, go with it. Whatever you think is the best thing to do, or you are who you are. You are who you are. It just might be that you're not who you think you are. But by definition, you have to be who you are. You can't be anything else. So verify everything in your own experience and try it. But have the confidence to admit when you're wrong. When you look and you try something and it doesn't work. Else you're just going to bang your head against the wall for... It could be decades. Especially, we get quite a young audience in here, and a lot of people, the young mind frame sticks through a lot of the 20s, but people can really, really get stuck. And that youth is to be valued. Thank you to everyone who's jumped in today. Thank you to everyone watching the video on Twitch, and we have a few views on there, quite a few. And thank you to everyone watching on YouTube as well. Thank you, Pablo, for your kind words and getting involved. And my Twitter is up. I share some pictures and things on there of the nice natural places that I visit. Because I do think time in nature is beneficial for mental health and for well-being, if you're interested in that kind of thing. But I also always tweet out if I'm not going to come on stream when I say I'm going to, or a little bit of a warning when I'm about to. If you're interested in that kind of thing, you can follow there, YouTube, subscribe, all that kind of stuff, obviously. Whatever you guys are doing for the rest of the day, rest of the week, and the weekend. I hope you have a great time. I hope everything's well with you. All the very best. Metta. Big love. Take care, and I'll see you guys soon. Cheers.